I got into Star Wars pretty young, and even though I was bored after the original trilogy came out, I still got to enjoy it, obviously, thanks to re releases and DVDs. How would I describe Star Wars? Well, I needed to rewatch it a few times to really understand it, but this is what I got from it. Luke Skywalker, his story is that of a bit of an everyman. He didn't have aspirations to be something great. He didn't want to be a Jedi, mainly since Jedi really weren't a thing at the time. He, at most, he just wanted to go to university with his friends, on another planet. I think it was less that he wanted the university and more that he just really wanted to leave the farm life because I think he really wanted something. He wanted adventure. And you can't blame him because a lot of people have that. They don't want to be stuck where they are, they want to go out and explore. Not everyone, some people are content, and that's fine. But Luke Skywalker was not content. He wanted to explore and see what life had to offer. Thanks to Obi-Wan Kenobi, he got that chance. He realized he was destined for greatness. In time, he was training to be a Jedi Knight and going against the galaxy's most dreaded Sith Lord, Darth Vader. Now, it's a bit of an interesting story. You got Luke teaming up with Han Solo and Princess Leia, and they're going after the Sith. It seems good at first as they get their big run at the end of New Hope. Then the Empire Strikes Back comes along, and this time the bad guys win. Han Solo gets frozen, Leia gets captured, and Luke he loses against Darth Vader. And of course, he finds out that Darth Vader is his father, which freaks him out. That's why by the time of Return of the Jedi, it felt like the heroes had to climb all the way from the bottom to the top and it made the victory more worth it because sometimes in story you need a little something bad to happen to make the happy ending feel worth it. It shows that Luke was willing to train hard to get what he wanted, and after everything he went through when training with Yoda on planet Dagobah, he was a fully realized Jedi Knight by the end of it. I mean, he probably still had more training to do afterwards, but he was good enough to handle Darth Vader in a fight. And in a way, doing so saved his father because at that when he defeated Darth Vader in that fight, I feel like Darth Vader died and Anakin Skywalker came back. Now let me get into Anakin Skywalker through the prequel trilogy. And yes, I know the prequel trilogy is kind of mixed. I see it as like the Dragon Ball GT of the franchise. It was hated at first, but then years later, people appreciate it. So, with the prequel trilogy, Phantom Menace, I will admit, dragged on a bit. That was my biggest criticism. I feel like it went on too long. They focused too much on meaningless plots, but it had a decent point of the story. You have Obi-Wan training to be a Jedi Knight. You have them getting Anakin ready to be a Jedi Knight. You had Darth Maul, and the fight with Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan Kenobi at the end of the movie had a lot of meaning behind it. It determined the fate of Anakin Skywalker, hence the soundtrack, Duel of the Fates. Great soundtrack, by the way. So by episode 2, Anakin Skywalker is doing his training, but one thing you gotta consider between Luke and Anakin, as much as Luke found his life boring, he was still raised by good people. Anakin was raised in a really rough environment, like he and his mother were slaves. And then in the second movie, he finds his mother again, and after she dies, it awakens a bit of vengeance in him. A Jedi cannot feel vengeance. He's not supposed to feel anything, but Anakin was slowly shifting to the dark side. Now, some of the knights are like, no, he could be saved, and maybe he could have. He probably had a chance to be better. It's argued that if Qui-Gon Jinn survived Phantom Menace, he could have helped Anakin, but he left Obi-Wan Kenobi behind, and Obi-Wan probably still had a lot of growing to do as well, so he couldn't save Anakin by the time of Revenge of the Sith, where he fully went to the dark side. I think George Lucas described the Star Wars movies as the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker, or something along those lines. And this, again, it's just two sides of the coin. Luke grew up ironically better than his father did, because his father at least got out of that place at a young age, but he never really fully left because he had an attachment. And the Jedi told him ignore his attachments, and that doesn't really help. I understand that's the Jedi way, but that did expose a bit of a flaw in the Jedi, which is not bad. Um, Sometimes it's interesting when even the great places have flaws. It shows a bit of yin and yang. Luke, he had, I think Luke just learned at a younger age how to overcome his flaws better. So Luke's journey, I would say, very much shown an anime type. Young guy, destined for greatness, even though he doesn't know it at first. I feel like it's baseline for a lot of anime. You look at something like My Hero Academia, there's a lot of Star Wars influence there. Um, so even Dragon Ball has plenty of Star Wars influence. Star Wars is one of the most influential franchises, and I will say this: the old movies from the '70s, they age really well in my opinion. I know there are probably a few scenes that don't look so good, but considering when they came out, they look amazing. I feel same thing with like the Superman movies, but Star Wars really look great. But that's all I had to say. And no, I have very little comments about the sequel trilogy. The only thing I care about from recent Star Wars was probably Rogue One, as well as Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor. The best Star Wars video game since Star Wars The Force Unleashed for me. But that's my thing about Star Wars. At one point, a great franchise, and even if it's not so great now, just remember its old legacy and hold on to it. That's all I had to say.